We want to welcome y'all back to Beyond the Surface. Back again. Appreciate y'all tuning in. We are right on the verge of a very special holiday, man.
Oh, it is. Yeah. The one and only MLK Day.
That's right, man. And, I just thought with that being said, we address some points and some key points that would make Dr. King proud, man, and kind of just bring like his vision to light of still pushing forward and acknowledging that we still have work to do. So that being said, in this episode we're gonna get into the minority experience and what that really means for us. I'm black, African American, and you are
mixed with everything. I'm Mexican, native, and white guy.
Yeah. A little bit of mix of everything. Yeah. So, that being said, like, what do you feel like is the minority experience for you? I mean, that's a huge topic, and like, kind of break that down. Maybe give some examples to start out, or story, anything.
Yeah, so I would say like everybody's gonna have a different experience first and foremost. That's just the way that any sort of like minority experience is. Like me, a lot of people like to say I'm white passing. It's crazy because I went to school in the Midwest, and before I went there, my grandmother, my nana, she told me one thing. She's like, "You lucky to look white, mijo." And I was like, "What?" At first, I didn't get that. I didn't get that at first. And then I went out there, and like you see a lot of people, like what my mom called it is like 21st century racism, in a sense, like where they'll be cool with you if they think you're white. like and they'll say some slick stuff about like other races, about other ethnicities, and you're like, wait a minute, you do know I'm not white, right? That's what I gotta tell them. Like
my man was playing undercover brother, man.
For real. I was and like for some people I feel like it's you just never had a minority in your classroom. Like, I didn't know what being a minority was, because like you probably have a different experience living here in Arizona, because there's mainly Hispanics, right? Mm-hmm. So you're a minority in that sense. But me, I think I'm a majority. You know what I mean? Yeah. Everybody's Hispanic. I look around, I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of fit in. I don't speak Spanish. Like that. Yeah. That's a whole nother like different topic too. But when I went out there, I was like, oh, this is what they mean. Blue hair, blonde eyes, as far as the eye can see. And I'm just sitting there in a sea of white. But it wasn't all bad. Like, people our age, I can see there's a huge difference, because their understanding of it, and it's not like a hate thing, it's more of like an ignorance thing. Like they might not have had a black kid or a brown kid or any sort of kid other than white in their school.
I feel like that's huge, because if you grow up not seeing anything different, the same thing the whole time, that's all you know. You haven't been exposed to anything else in your life, so you're not really sympathetic or anything to their experience, or what may rub them the wrong way, or
what might not be appropriate for what you understand. And like, I get it. I see it all the time. And another thing that happened while I was there, like, of course I'm on the basketball team, so there's other black people on the basketball team, and one of my teammates was like, we were both in this sociology class, and we had to do volunteering, and we went to a dementia center in the middle of Iowa. So think about this. There's older generation, and I went to one of the worst ones, because I'm like, all right, let me go talk to these people, help them out. And my teammate looked at me and he's like, bro, I'm not going over there. And I was like, why not? And he's like, think about it. Whenever these people were raised. And I was like, no, it can't be that bad. The first day, Leo, I get there, they're going around the table, just get to know things. Like the nurse or whatever is like, okay, let's ask everybody. And so one of the ladies was like a sweet old lady, and she's like, "Okay, my question is for Xavier. What's your favorite color?" And I go, "Purple," because that's my favorite color. And some dude literally looks up, bright eyed, big old smile, like he's about to say the funniest joke, and he goes, "Purple's a good color if you're an N-word." And I'm like, and he didn't say N-word. He said straight up said the whole thing. Yeah. And I'm like mouth agape. The nurse is like, "Oh, sorry, it's a different time. You have to understand. That's whenever they grew up." And like it just reverts back to that. And
it's wild because like even though they may have that disease or dementia or whatever it is, that's bringing them. He's reminiscing on whatever he was in the past.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that generational thing is. It's kind of touchy because it's like when you look at it, and you would like to say that it's different, like nowadays, and it is compared to the generations in the past. But somebody that may not be as well-rounded or doesn't have the knowledge would say it doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's not, that can't be true either.
Right, because it always is, because it funnels down from generation to generation, and however you grew up is likely however you're gonna go about your future and how you live out your life. So it's tough. It's a tough thing to completely cut out. You know what I mean? It'll never be completely cut out. And that's one of the things that I actually wanted to get into as well is not only, our experience, but like the systemic racism. And that's been passed down from centuries, right?
Centuries, yeah.
Since slavery to Jim Crow and how that's affected us.
Yeah, even like I think about my work whenever we do like mortgages, they had to put a law in there to observe housing. Like, so redlining is basically so you're not outlining a certain community like, oh yeah, Xavier is him, but because he's Hispanic, we're only going to put him where the Hispanics are. Like, he's not allowed to get any other houses anywhere else.
That's crazy.
You know what I mean?
That you brought that up, because that's literally what I was, doing some research on recently is when it came about, you already know about it, but just to break it down a little bit as well, redlining is when they initially, government agencies came together and they basically said, you can't, in order to get this loan, you have to live in a certain
demographic.
And district. So they were denying people based on the maps that they broke down, denying people, like, if you live in this area, we're not going to give you a housing loan.
Yep.
And that's so detrimental to a race of people, because like that holds them down from generational wealth. Like the easiest way for a population of people to create generational wealth is buying homes,
owning assets,
and a college education. And so by stripping their ability to be able to purchase homes, they strip that ability of wealth, generational wealth. And then on top of that stems into like a college education, because you're not able to then pay for that. Yeah, and that creates impoverished communities.
Yeah, and you're basically on purpose holding down a community, and that's like unfortunate. And to an extent, I feel like that's why we have to acknowledge systematic racism, because they acknowledged it. Luckily, they realized, oh, hey, wait, we're oppressing different communities because we're not allowing them to live in certain areas, and we're denying their loans. And that's the same thing with kind of a lot of issues still to this day, is we have to acknowledge them. We can't say that they don't exist. You have to be able to see that and grow from it. That's all about progression, man. Martin Luther King.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just it's crazy to me that I didn't know that, like, about redlining, and that's something that we should be learning, I think, in our schools, rather than just the the basic social studies that you learn of the Revolutionary War and World War II. We should be learning all that as well, but like learning how our communities today are affected as well. So it was crazy to me when I saw that you can just deny somebody a loan based on where they live, and it was like, yo, I live in this place for a certain reason, anyways. Like I live in this poor community where you guys, when they made the redlining, it was based on if it was basically a good or bad place to live. And it's like, yo, I live in this bad place because of the slavery that happened, and then the opportunity that I haven't had because of Jim Crow when they was making those
you made us live there. Yeah,
exactly. So that's very obviously systemic, and that being said, like that's our grandparents and our great grandparents being affected by that, but it's been passed down to us. So now we're at a point to where we still have those impoverished communities, and they're not getting the opportunities.
It's changed too much. Yeah. Do you think they should make it a requirement to have like systematic racism? Is that right? No, systemic racism, and slavery still be taught in schools? Because I've seen some things like in the past couple years where people were talking about not even having it, which I think is absolutely wild.
Yeah, that's pretty infuriating.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, the answer is absolutely like a resounding yes. Like both of those should be taught, and quite frankly taught in more detail. Like we learn about slavery and the plantations and the Civil War and Abraham Lincoln and that the abolition of it, what day, but like go into depth a little bit more about the heroes and like the unsung heroes that we don't hear about too much, and just like actually spend a little bit of time on it rather than like a week or two. Yeah,
it's true. I feel like even like recently, I felt like not a lot of people even knew about Juneteenth. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like now it's like a government holiday, but before nobody really knew, like celebrated that as like the day.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people didn't know what it was, what it meant.
Yeah.
And you'd even hear some people like make fun of it, like, oh, you got that off. Like, you know what I mean? Like, like a joke. And like it wasn't a real holiday.
Like it wasn't,
That's one of the most real holidays. If you ask me, if any, it's more real than Columbus Day. I know that.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's why it's now, as you were saying earlier, Indigenous Peoples Day.
Because that's still the same. Like, you know what I mean? Even though he flew, some dude, I was gonna say flew over, sailed over, and met some other people, so they discovered him too. You know what I mean? They discovered each other,
right?
And not to say that that's like the whole history behind it, but at least come correct with the type of holidays and I guess the factual statements on anything history related, so we don't repeat that. Like hopefully in my lifetime or even like 10 lifetimes from now we don't repeat that, but it still runs a chance unless you learn about it. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I mean, knowledge is power, and that's the only ways we're going to be able to change as a society and community. But the systemic racism I think is big because a lot of times we just on a broader scale, I think people are like we're all equal now and everything's all good and we have the same rights and this and that, but it's just that monster behind the curtain that's still there, whether it be like incarceration rates or whether it be like death rates of for example, pregnant women. It's so much higher amongst women of color compared to white women, and that comes down to healthcare, how well they're being treated. Same thing with infants. When they're born, they're more likely to die in the hospital if they're a person of color rather than a white baby. And as we talked about the redlining, it's just there's a lot of different points there that still need work, and it's just hard to get past the sins of of the country. But we're doing our part.
Yeah, you just got to take it one day and keep pushing forward, because it's, some people make it seem like it's really far away, but it's honestly like 2 generations, I think. Like,
Yeah.
I was explaining to you earlier that my grandparents, like, he went to a segregated school. Like, all the minorities went there. The reason my last name is the way it is because they were worried about him being discriminated against. Like, I have an unusual last name. People always ask, like, why is it that? And for those of you that don't know, it's Burnham. And it's kind of weird for a Hispanic person to have Burnham as their last name in any way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. And it's just to avoid it. Like, we were trying to be white passing, which I understand, because at the time it was like bad to be anything minority related, because you knew you were going to get discriminated against. You knew you weren't going to have the same opportunities. And if it's only like 2 generations away, some of that's still going to trickle down. You know what I mean? Like, you will have a different chance than me, and we'll both have a different chance than somebody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that brings me to something that I was also learning about. Like, as far as a resume, like in jobs, looking at a resume, right? I don't remember the exact number, but basically, if you have a white sounding name, you're much more likely to get a call back from that job rather than they did say like this specifically was like a black sounding name, but I'm sure it's the same thing for Hispanic or anything like that.
Yeah, any other name. That's what I was thinking too. Like, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, the whole resume thing. I've read that before as well, and it's just unfortunate, man. It's real sad. Like, we hope that we just change past it. That reminds me, funny story. So a lighter side of names. One of my teammates was named Tyrell, and he was a white guy, and his mom.
Wow.
His mom loved like every single, I guess, name like that, and his name was Tyrell. I think his sister's name was LaQuisha, and she was a white girl too. White hair, blonde eye, blue-eyed blonde hair. Yeah, it was funny.
That's unexpected.
Yeah, so he would always go by the White Tyrell, which makes me laugh. But that's kind of like, that's something that you have to think about, like, in the long run. It's wild that you have to restrict yourself from naming your child what you want to name them based off of something like that. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, don't name them something outlandish. I'm not saying, like, personally I wouldn't. Shanae. Yeah. Well, did I ever tell you this story? Like, I'm going off topic really quick about what I would name my son is Xavius. And see, that's kind of a crazy name. And the reason for it was because I was trying to date this girl in 8th grade, and she went to one of those churches that they're singing out there.
Oh yeah,
like
they be getting it.
I'm talking about like a Christian rock singing.
Oh, okay.
Like pastor came out with a Hawaiian shirt, and no, they had me. So I go in there with her, and I'm like, I don't want to go. Like, I'm not much of a churchgoer, no offense. Like, I believe in all kinds of religions, and I definitely want to see you thrive and succeed, but I don't really go personally. And I went, and I told her right before we went, I was like, they're going to point me out. I'm a tall guy. I know they're going to see a new face and want to be like, hey, who's that?
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, and she's like, no, it won't happen. No, it won't happen. They're in there getting it, like, and I'm just standing there kind of in the middle rows. And the pastor comes up and he's like, I see old faces and new faces. And then he points right at me and goes, what is your name, son? And I go, Xavier. And he goes, Xavius. What a powerful name. And I go, damn, I can't correct this man mid-sermon. I can't be like, nah, you're wrong.
Yeah. There's not much you can do about that one, bro.
So I ate it, right? He goes through his whole thing. It all finishes up. He's at the door shaking everybody's hand as they leave. And he gets to me and he like does a long pause and he goes, Xavius, good to have you. I hope to see you again. And I go, yep, you'll see me again. Never came back.
And now that's gonna be Lil X's name, man.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
I said
it was a blessing.
Yeah,
right?
it was given by God. God shined down and
Yeah.
said, Xavier's. That's the name.
So when they put that on the resume, they're not gonna have any idea what he is. He's a wild card.
Yeah, exactly. They said, "Oh, I don't know. Maybe he's Greek. Maybe he's Roman or something." He said,
he's the draw 4 in the deck, bro.
"Yeah,
Man. But yeah, man, I'm glad we're talking about this because you know it's something that needs to get shed light upon. You know,
it does definitely." And I seen, like, not to speak on my sister's experience. So my sister lived on the reservation, and even she got discriminated against by her own tribe. Like, she's Apache, and like, not to tell her full story, but partly they would just call her Mexican because she was half Native, half Hispanic, and they would just call her Mexican. Like, no, you're not Native, you're Mexican, which is kind of messed up. You know what I mean? Like, you want to be accepted by your people still, but that comes down to a whole nother thing. Like, even the light skin versus dark skin debate, and like white passing me. Like,
right. Because you know the whole half breed thing. Yeah. You know, some people will be considered like, you know, when you in the black community, it's like if you're mixed, like some people just say, oh, like you're mixed, like they won't consider them black, or you know what I mean, which is a touchy subject because you want to own both of your races.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, but some people will joke around about that and be like, oh, you're not full, like, you know. Yeah,
and I get that. That's kind of a rough situation too. You know what I mean? That's a whole nother deep dive that you have to think about, and the whole aspect of like getting past that, because that's almost like everybody's pitted against each other only based off of like the color of your skin.
But yeah, man, we just wanted to really bring this issue to light, especially with such a big day, MLK Day, coming up. You know, it's a celebration, but it's also a day to just remember how far we've come and how much work we still have to do. So, you know, hit those comments and let us know what y'all think are ways to combat systemic racism. And, you know, I think the first thing is to shed light on the issue itself. So, you know, help us bring this issue to the forefront as much as possible. And
fight against ignorance. That's pretty much it. You know what I mean? Like, get to know somebody, get outside of your comfort zone. That's with everything. Like we always say, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and maybe a new experience, meeting a new friend, and who knows, maybe you'll have a lifelong friend just from meeting somebody. Getting outside of your comfort zone, immersing yourself in another culture. You might learn something, some food, some language, some anything. To be honest, you can take and make yourself better, make them better. Everybody gets better. You know what I mean?
That's big, man. Yeah. So with that being said, we appreciate y'all tuning in once again to Beyond the Surface. Catch us on all that.
I don't know what that means, but yeah.
TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. But happy MLK Day, y'all.
Yeah.
Peace.